Hello and welcome to Raw Podcast with myself, Kugan Cassius. This week, absolutely delighted to be joined by Lewis Richardson, our bronze-winning Olympian. Bit random how we actually met. We actually met doing interviews of Adam Smith's podcast randomly.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, we got chatting last week and here we are. How are you, first of all?
Yeah, well, good, thanks. Pleasure to be part of your podcast. And yeah, as you say, obviously, we only met a week or so ago, sort of crossed paths whilst doing a bit for Adam Smith. But I've been doing plenty of interviews, plenty of podcasts over the last month or so. But yeah, enjoying every moment.
Absolutely, and so you should. Have you got over Paris yet? Because there's a lot going on at the time. We'll talk about some of the stuff that was happening with the boxing, but it was it must have felt like a bit of a whirlwind, the whole experience. And obviously, you were the only one from Team GB to come home with a medal. So, I mean, how do you even sum that up?
Yeah, I mean, am I over it? I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. Listen, it was an amazing month. It's been an amazing year, to be honest. Like 2024 has, without doubt, been the best year of my life. And yeah, sort of long may it continue. But Paris itself was, an amazing experience. Being a sole medalist, I would like to give a shout out to Cindy Ngamba, who, although she doesn't represent Team GB, she is one of her own. But, on paper, being Team GB's only Olympic medalist, it brings with you extra sort of expectation, extra exposure, extra media profile. So just soaking it all up, really. Sort of taking day by day, sort of, and making the most of every experience. During games time, it was difficult to sort of soak it all in because there was just so much good stuff going on. And the thing with me, Coog, is like the Olympics has been my dream. Some people grow up watching sort of professional athletes do their thing, and sort of having someone like Ricky Hatton, who was just a proper Mancunian warrior and that's their ambition. Whereas mine, I grew up watching the Olympics, not necessarily boxing, just watching the Olympic and everything it had to offer. And that's been a big dream of mine, and to fulfil that dream, but not only to become an Olympian, but to be an Olympic medalist. I think that made it extra special. And I don't know, I still feel like I'm riding the wave and soaking it up and enjoying it for what it is.
Absolutely. Right, let's clarify a few things. I was sold on the whole Billericay to Bangkok headline, and that's actually, I've got spoken, I was thinking, I live 5 minutes away from Billericay, like, I didn't realise Lewis was from, and then you explained it was kind of just, it was done. You're Colchester, but it was kind of done with the whole play on words, which was, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
but,
so rolled off the tongue, so I'm Colchester through and through, but my first bout, back in 2010 or 11 was in Billericay, and then qualification bout, which I think was bout number 123 or 4, was in Bangkok, so Billericay to Bangkok, and more importantly, Colchester to Paris and an Olympic medal.
Absolutely. Lewis, for people that don't know, tell me a little bit about kind of when you got into boxing, that kind of early part of your life. Obviously, what you've accomplished now is phenomenal, but just for people that don't know, explain a little bit about how you actually even got into boxing.
For me, it was just a bit of, a little bit of fun, a little bit of fitness for football, but the actual boxing gym itself, we just stumbled across. There was like, I come from Colchester. I'm very proud to be from Colchester, but we come from, probably one of the lesser estates of Monkwick, and it's a council estate, a typical council estate sort of vibe, and there's people getting up to no good, and also people trying to do good. And we were just young, like 12-year-olds, sort of roaming around the streets one day, and we stumbled across the boxing gym, and I was like, okay, cool, let's all go in. So about maybe 12, 13 of us sort of bombarded the boxing gym that night, and I remember the coach saying, like, where the hell do these come from? And sort of one by one, all my mates sort of dropped out. There was 2 of us left standing after like maybe a 2-month period. We both got carded, had 4 bouts each, won 3, lost 1, and then he dropped out, and then it was just, I was sort of the lone wolf. What I would say is I was very fortunate to have my big brother Deacon. He was down there to lose a little bit of weight. He was in the boxing gym to lose a little bit of weight. I was there to get fit for football, and the rest is history. 126 amateur bouts later.
Yeah, and obviously you joined Team GB, 2018,
yeah,
was it?
Start of 2018, yeah. Got a stress fracture in my back like the same day I joined, so I was out for the whole of 2018. Had a productive 2019, And then COVID hit in 2020, wiped us out for most of 2020 and a bit of 2021, and then had a productive 21, 22, and then had a wrist injury 23. So I've had sort of, although I've been in the program maybe 5-6 years, it's been sort of a little bit stop-start. But that being said, I've had about 50 fights with GB. So when I'm on. You know, I've had, I think, 16 bouts this year, obviously to get to the Olympics and win a medal. So yeah, when I'm fit and ready to go, then there's no holding me back.
Let's flash back to Paris. Obviously, it was a tale of split decisions for you. Obviously, that last one against Marco Verdi from Mexico didn't go your way. But just sum up for me. I don't want to spend too much time. Everyone's kind of watched your fights there, but just sum up kind of the 3 fights that you did have.
Yeah, so obviously first one against Serbia. What I would say is all 3 on paper, I was not the favourite to win. That they were the favourite going in. So the Serbian had 1 European gold and a world medal previously. What I would say at this new weight at 71, I was massive at the weight. So when we come face to face in the ring, to touch gloves, I knew that I had a good height advantage on him. Sort of utilised that as best as possible. He was a very skilled fighter. I think all 3 of them rounds were split, so it was a close fight, and I got the nod 3-2, deservedly so. I thought I was doing the cleaner work and being the busier fighter. The second fight was, a real good fight, Jordan, and I've been watching him for years. He's a double Olympian, and more importantly, he beat the Kazakh and the Japanese to get to me in the quarterfinals of the Olympics, and they were 2 of the hot favourites to go and medal and do really well. So he sort of knocked out them guys, and then coming up against me, I knew I was capable of doing it, and won the first 5-0, won the second, I think, 3-2, and going into the last round, I knew I'd won on 3 cards. So that was quite a surreal moment, having boxing in the 3rd round of Olympic quarter-final, knowing that all you've got to do is not get knocked out basically, and you're going to win the Olympic medal. And I was able to obviously get the job done there. So that was special. And then heading into the semis against the Mexican, I think he was a number 2 seed. And I knew he was good. I knew he was a bit of a box fight. He could box a little bit, but also he could fight. And it was just a real close fight. He won the first, which I thought was a little bit. I thought it was maybe he won it on a 3-2 the first round, and then I won the second 4-1. I thought I won the second a bit cleaner, maybe a 5-0, and then heading into the third. It was a close 3rd round. I thought I'd done enough. He started really strong in the 3rd round. But I sort of come on top towards the end, and I only needed 1 scorecard out of a particular 2. Obviously, it can get a little bit complicated with scorecards, but both of them 2 went against me, so I ended up losing on a 3-2 split decision. What I would say is, he was very respectful, before and after the fight, and I'd love to run that back in the future. So, crossing the pond in a few years' time to, fight in America or Mexico, I'd love to sort of run that one back, because I believe that, that fight was just getting started. So let's get it on over, over 10 or 12 rounds for a title in a few years. I'm saying that early doors so we can come back to this interview.
I'll clip this back out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Every Olympic cycle always kind of gets compared with probably predominantly the previous cycles, but where do you think that this Team GB squad sits amongst the last, say, 3 cycles? If we date this back to, I suppose, 2012 at London, because it's difficult to gauge every Olympic cycle, who's going to go and do what from turning over. But how do you compare your Team GB with, the last 3?
I still think we had a really strong team. I thought we was unfortunate to only come away with 1 medal, obviously myself. We had 3 males, and they lost on split decisions. We had 3 females, they lost on split decisions. And what I would say is, you look at Rio and Tokyo, and we were getting the nods on the splits. So I remember a couple of quarterfinals in Tokyo where we won on 3-2 split decision to secure that medal. And, you know, they could have went the other way, just like some of our decisions could have went the other way. I don't like creating a narrative of robbery. I don't really like that word. I think it's overused and, you know, it's sort of not necessary.
It's definitely overused in the Olympics,
Yeah.
and rightly so sometimes as well, but I get what
like,
you're saying, yeah.
3-2 split decisions in amateur boxing when it's 3 rounds, it's going to be close. We're at that top level, but, you know, there were a couple where, you know, I thought they were a bit more clear and obvious than a 3-2, and especially when they went the other way. But listen, the team was strong, and I think prospects in regards to moving forward as professionals. I think, you know, there's exciting prospects still. Me, Pat Brown, Delicious Ori. I think all 3 of us could go on to do, you know, good things in the pros. And then with females, it's still a little bit undecided whether, you know, they make that transition or they don't. But if they were to make the transition, you know, Chantel Reed, Rosie Eccles, Charlie Davison, like that, you know, all 3 of those are top athletes and good boxers. And also, I mentioned her again, Cindy Ngamba, like she's gonna make history in the future. Whether she decides to turn professional or stay amateur, like she is, yeah, her story will get told to the world one day, and yeah, it'll make for a great film.
Who do you tip, obviously you mentioned Cindy there, but who do you tip out the males that you think will become kind of, outside of Team GB, who will become kind of a star in the pro ranks?
Me. So I think I'm capable of doing that.
Yeah. I did want to include Team GB in it, because we'll talk about Pat and Delicious Ori, but outside of
okay.
of Team GB, who would you tip?
From the Olympic cycle?
Yes, yeah.
And so no GB athletes?
Nothing to do with GB.
Listen, I think Marco Verdi he's got a big following on social media, and I think he will be a big star. I believe, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but I believe Mexico hadn't had a boxing Olympic medalist for many years. So listen, like he's
quite mad, isn't it?
Yeah, and Canelo was talking about our fight. You know, he was commenting on mine and Verdi's fight, saying it was a good fight and it was a close one, etc. So for Canelo to be saying that, obviously, and supporting his own, you know, whilst I was in the other corner that time, Marco Verdi could be a good star. Amari Jones, again my weight, and again another fight that I would take in the future. He's an American, so he was America's only Olympic medalist in boxing. Marco Verdi was Mexican's only Olympic medalist. I was Great Britain's only Olympic medalist. So, you know, them two are 2 potential, you know, big stars. Other weights, will Kugan ever turn pro? I don't know. So Kugan was the reason I missed out in Tokyo, because we drew each other in the Olympic qualifier when we were both at middleweight at 75. Will he turn pro? I don't know. He's took a lot of punishment in the amateurs, but he has got that gold medal that, you know, he's so dearly wanted over the years. There's loads and loads of good prospects. Light heavy is always an exciting division. The Cuban's always good, but will they make that transition? Maybe not. Super heavies, Jadalovi's already a pro. What is he, 13 and 14 now?
Yeah.
You know, with 13 and 14 KOs. So should he be doing the Olympic Games again? I don't know. Like that's
a whole different discussion.
Yeah,
that is.
But listen, like there's definitely stars out there. I'm a little bit biased towards obviously my weight category, but there's plenty of good fights to be made in the future.
Excuse me. Has you already decided that you was going to turn pro prior to the Olympics?
Yeah. So interestingly, not many people know this, but at sort of the middle to back end of last year, I started having discussions with a couple of promoters to make that transition, because my weight category, my true weight category, middleweight, 75 kilograms, got took out of this Olympic cycle to introduce more female weight categories. A male weight category had to be cut, so it was middleweight that got cut. I didn't think I could make 71. We had discussions, and it didn't really seem viable. But then, you know, obviously I had a bit of a light bulb moment a few months later where I was like, no, I can make it and I will make it. But prior to that, I was starting to have discussions, which is interesting now, because the beauty of what I've just achieved is, you know, my stocks have risen and my value has increased. But yeah, you know, the plan was always to either go for the Olympics, do well at the Olympics, or if it wasn't viable, which we didn't think it was to make that transition. So decision was already half made. I'm 27, you know, I've had Olympic aspirations, Olympic dreams, and I feel like I've definitely achieved that over the last month and over the years of hard work. But now it's about making that transition to go pro and achieving titles, because I've also got aspirations to do big things as a professional.
We'll talk about kind of your. It's not even potential. You are turning professional, but we'll talk about that in a second. During that Olympics, there was this very controversial story that was running all the way through with the boxing, with particularly Imane Khalif. I mean, what was kind of the vibe in Paris while that was going on, and that was blowing up quite hard on social media especially? There was a lot of misinformation put out at the time. I think everyone kind of learnt a little bit of a process around that, not just to jump the gun with certain things. But being in Paris, what was kind of the feeling and the vibe around there regarding Khalif?
It was difficult because it's definitely taken away from the quality of boxing that was going on, especially when you was at the boxing venue, you was a lot more aware of it. What I would say is with the Olympics being sort of a multi-sport event, it was okay because you could take your sort of self away from the boxing situation, especially being in the Olympic Village where there's so much good stuff going on. It's quite easy to be sort of positively distracted by the negative sort of media that was portraying, as you say, misinformation, which I still don't think the full sort of facts are out on that case yet. So it's difficult to make a comment on that, and people do jump the gun early, and it's when media are putting it out there, it's hard not to believe it, but people sort of the media put things out without themselves really fully understanding the case. But I would say, listen, whilst it negatively affected sort of the quality of the boxing that was going on, there should have been headlines about that because there were some fantastic fights in Paris. It didn't sort of negatively impact the mood of, boxing in general because there was so much other stuff going on, so much positive stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, a lot of it came on Twitter or X now, and it spiraled in a very short space of time. And, I'm reading legitimate people that I take in the industry making comment on like Khalif's kind of situation, etc. And at the point of reading, I'm not disbelieving it because I'm looking at who's writing it and I'm thinking, is this? So one interview, we run with a couple of comments which we later removed, but it was it taught everyone a very valuable lesson about not, because it was crazy, and just like you said, we've not found out all the facts. I think, and I've spoken to Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn around the time, and Frank's got a different view to it to Hearn, but Hearn's saying that he'd have to have all the facts present before he would make a decision, even whether he would be interested in signing an Imane Khalif.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what I would say is with Imane Khalif, I've been in the circuit sort of with her for years. So I remember being, I think, Serbia in December 21. She was at the same tournament as me, and I believe she lost in one of them tournaments. I've seen her lose, on a few occasions. I know Amy Broadhurst beat her in the World Championship final a couple of years ago also. So she has been beaten by other females, which could sort of answer a few questions in itself there, maybe. But listen, she done her job at the games. The OIC or whoever sort of makes the decision allowed her to compete, and she done all she could, and that was perform and sort of win her gold medal. Whether she should have been allowed to compete or not, that's it's certainly not my position to say. And as I said earlier, I don't really have a full opinion on that because I don't know the full facts, and that's someone pretty in the know in the boxing world, but there's still factual information that's sort of I believe hasn't been released yet.
But I'll tell you what, that pro debut from her, that's going to have a lot of eyes on. But that's what.
And I was at Roland Garros for Olympic final and semi-final because my semi-final was the same evening as hers, and the Algerians come out in full force, and they come out in full force again in the final. It was almost like she had a home crowd there.
Eddie Hearn suggested, or didn't suggest, he'd come out with that her opponent, the Italian, that was a bit of a get-up, that was all kind of planned. Look, that's not for me to say whether that's his opinion. He believes that was kind of done for that viral moment, and, I don't know.
Like you said, it's not your place to say, it's not my place to say either. So, I'm unsure on the facts on that, so, I can't really say too much more.
So, moving forward for you now, obviously, we're assuming that you're talking to kind of the top promoters from the UK. Are you talking to promoters outside of the UK as well?
Not at right this moment. I've had initial contact with a couple of American promoters, but sort of they've gone no further right at this moment. But I'll be open to talking to everybody at the moment, because I don't believe having a conversation, having a meeting can lead you, in any negative way.
It's interesting because what you have in your favour is kind of looking at past Olympic cycles that you've been involved with as well, and kind of seeing who's turned pro, and there's a blueprint for a lot. You can see kind of what worked for some fighters, what didn't work for other fighters, etc., to make like a rounded decision for yourself.
Yeah, well, I think also you look at, like, just in regards to the career path and the success route of many Olympic medalists, and don't get me wrong, many Olympians from Great Britain go on to have great careers, but the Olympic medalists, there's very, very few sort of stories where they haven't gone to plan. Luke Campbell never won a world title, but he had some great fights, didn't he? And I don't think he'll have a career look back on when people think, nah, he didn't really achieve well. He had great fights. He had a great fight with Linares, great fight with Lomachenko.
Yeah.
And then
Tommy Cole.
Yeah, brilliant fights. Great nights where he would have, profile would have increased, and he would have made good money, and it's a bit of legacy there, isn't it? And very few sort of stories where it doesn't necessarily go to plan. So I feel like being, an Olympic medalist puts me in a great position to get the support, to get the right team around me to go on and, achieve great things. I'm hardworking. No one can ever doubt that. I'm fit. I'm robust. I'm strong. And I can, I believe I can go on and have great nights, hopefully bring nights back to Colchester, and being around London, crossing the pond to fight, Verdi or Jones in the future, and then, even popping over to Saudi. Like, I just feel like being, turning professional now is it's a great time to turn pro with plenty of options out there.
You're turning professional as well in a really, not a weird time anymore. We're kind of used to it, but where we're seeing like Hearn and Warren working together, and now we're seeing Hearn, Warren and Shalom all working on a show together, etc., with Saudi Arabia. It's a very weird time where 4 years ago, like I said, you'd probably have one promoter saying, no, don't go over there and come over here. I'm just making this up, by the way. But everyone's working together now. It is a bit of a weird time, but for you to turn pro, because you're probably getting a more balanced view of like what's out there.
Well, I just think it's good because like good fights will get made, and I'm heading into the pros. I'm not afraid to go in and have good fights. Like, you lose fighting the amateurs, you bounce back, you go again. And I think with the pro scene at the moment, you're able to have those good fights, and as long as you put a good account on yourself, which I believe I'll always do, like, you'll get opportunities again if should you earn them, deserve them. And I feel like for myself, obviously, the first year or so, like you make that transition, you have them learning fights, but sooner rather than later, I'll be looking to sort of get amongst it and start pushing for titles.
Absolutely. A lot going on in boxing now. It's like I said, it's a good time, but it's also like a bit of a...
It's unique, isn't it?
Bit of a unique time. I was going to call it weird, but let's call it
let's take the weird out. It
time.
It is unique, but listen, it's exciting, and as I said earlier, you get the right team around you, then there's doors that will open, and you get the right promoter behind you who backs you and who wants to follow your journey and support that journey as well. And I just feel like there's so many different avenues to explore at the moment. Of course, you might look back in hindsight and think, oh, maybe I should have went that way or that way. But as long as you sort of stay true to yourself and commit to whatever path you're going down, then I don't think you can have too many regrets.
You made a good point there about, you look at past Olympians that have won gold even. The higher the medal doesn't necessarily mean they've been more successful as a pro. Like, I mean, you go back to like even Audley Harrison, Olympic gold medalist. Yeah. Never won a world title. I think Audley got to a European title. You look at Khan. He won silver, and look at had the career he had, etc. But there's, Wilder, same bronze as you. WBC heavyweight champion for years. So it doesn't necessarily tell you the path just because, but it just gives you, obviously, as a personal accomplishment, obviously.
100%. Listen, it fulfills a dream, being an Olympic medalist, whatever the colour, but also gives you that springboard, springboard to a platform to really springboard off. You can go and sort of, it puts you in a position to be able to push off and be like, yeah, I'm ready to sort of take what's next. I think for me, like, you look at a lot of Olympians, and regardless of the medal, you know, you've got to look at other aspects of their life. You know, are they personable, or are they business savvy, or can they do things outside the boxing
100%,
ring?
yeah.
And you know, I'd like to think that, you know, I'm quite capable outside the ring. You know, I've got a master's degree in sport business management. You know, hopefully I'll never need to use that, but I'd have learned things in, you know, within that sort of academic side of things, which hopefully I can transfer over to the real world, you know, now turning professional from a more business perspective. You know, being open to saying yes to opportunities and experiences, I believe will open doors, you network and you're meeting new people. And I think, you know, aside from my boxing ability and my attributes I sort of demonstrate inside the ring, I believe that, you know, I can sort of express myself outside the ring as well, and also bring sort of, you know, bring viewers, bring audiences in from a different point of view of just the boxing ring. But, you know, for the next 7-8 years, whilst I'm professional, that the boxing remains a priority.
Do you know anyone else from Colchester that's ever won a medal in the Olympics?
Never. No.
What have you?
No, seriously. So there's so definitely never in boxing. Never ever in boxing. And I had a conversation with the GB coach. When was the last person from Essex to win an Olympic medal, an Olympic boxing medal? Obviously, there's been quite a few London-based, and you know, there's that sort of maybe East London which thinks, oh, does it cross over to Essex? But I don't know the last time anyone from Essex won an Olympic boxing medal. Colchester certainly never. And yeah, go on, you tell me.
I'm trying to work it out. I'm trying to have a look at who won medals, but none of them were from Essex. So are you saying there's a possibility someone's going to have to fact check this? That you could be the first. No, you're not the first ever person from Essex to win an Olympic medal.
An Olympic boxing medal.
Boxing medal,
I listen. Someone, an audience from this podcast can check that out for us.
Right. Well, listen. If anybody puts below in the comments somebody who's won an Olympic boxing medal from Essex, not East London, just Essex.
Yeah. And listen, Essex is quite a proud boxing sort of county as well, you know. So, listen, it would be some achievement if it is. I know obviously Agogo won at Eastern Counties. He's from Lowestoft in Suffolk area, and as we said, there would have been a lot of East London, but yeah, I don't know the last person. Also from Colchester, no, certainly never from Colchester, and we've had a couple of sort of people on the outskirts where have won Olympic medals in other sports. We had someone from Mersey win a sailing medal, I believe, but. Yeah, like I feel like I've got the potential to put Colchester on a map and you know, bring big nights back to Essex.
Absolutely. So when you go in Colchester now, what did you get away with? Did you get a Nando's black card? What happens?
It's funny you say this. So last night I went for a curry, and the owner knew me from watching me at the games. And yeah, I didn't pay for that curry, which is nice. All
right, we're just starting.
So that's the starting point. Took my girlfriend out for a birthday meal at a nice restaurant in Colchester not so long ago, and they recognised me and didn't pay for that meal. And listen, the thing with me, Coog, is I love my food. Like I'm not a drinker. Obviously, never done drugs, but I don't really drink either. So for me, like my food is my drink, my drugs, my gambling, everything. You know, that's my outlet, and I love my food. So yeah, to be going to some of the nicer restaurants and. Getting a little bit of a nice touch with that. There's certain perks that come with being an Olympic medalist.
Do you know next time I see you, you're going to have Morley's Chicken Shop?
Me, one of my main sponsors.
Yeah. I knew we'd find one. But I think, listen, I've spent a lot of time in Colchester, but I think Colchester should embrace you as, like I said, an Olympian, to come out of Colchester, Essex, wherever it is. And I think, you know, all them sort of things, they just... you know, come back up. Listen, I'm sure if you hadn't come back with a medal, I'm sure you would have got that same treatment anyway, to be fair.
Luckily, we'll never have to know.
Hopefully, thankfully, yes. So give me a time span of when we can expect to kind of see movement and news of kind of now the next chapter of your
listen,
career.
I'm ready to get cracking really in regards to, I've got meetings lined up with promoters. Obviously, you know, building a team around you from a trainer perspective, from a manager perspective, just the whole team. It will take a little bit of time. You know, if I had my way, I'd be fighting this side of the year. But it'd probably be unlikely, just because this transition, when you've achieved obviously an Olympic medal, it does take a little bit longer than the usual transitions. But definitely the first quarter of next year, I'd like to be out boxing, make my pro debut, hopefully in the UK, hopefully close to home, somewhere in London or even in Essex. And just, get a big following behind me, and just follow the journey over the next sort of 7-8 years. I've just turned 27, which I think for me is a great time. I think I was quite a late developer, sort of growing into my physical sort of, attributes, but I'm healthy. I'm a healthy 27. I have that style where I don't take loads and loads of punishment. So I feel healthy at 27, and I feel like, a good 7-8 years in the pro game I can go on and achieve big things.
It's exciting stuff, isn't it? It's like, this is the next phase. You've done your kind of service to Team GB, and like I said, you've come out with a medal, so that part of your life is kind of in the past now. It's all about moving forward. Yeah,
definitely. Like a couple of people who are highly respected within the boxing world sort of said to me, what you've just achieved, will change your life, and that was very soon after securing that Olympic medal. And I was like, fair enough, we'll see. But like every single day at the moment is bringing new opportunities, new experiences, and sort of just doing my best to stay as present as I can be, because I'm right now, I'm enjoying doing this, and then tomorrow I've got something else going on which is exciting, and the next day, it sort of all rolls into one big, massive, great experience. But obviously that, sooner rather than later there'll become a time where I've got to make that switch between prioritising and training again. I'm still training at the moment. I love my training, I always stay in decent shape. But and it does feel like my life, is changing slightly, and it's just strange because, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I come from pretty humble beginnings, just typical council estate, which is the typical boxer anyway. We come from quite low socio-economic backgrounds, and I've just strived to be the best version that I can be. And I believe that, I wasn't even meant to be at the Olympic Games from politics, weight changes, injuries. It wasn't even meant to be that case, and I've sort of created that path for myself, and then gone on to win the Olympic medal. I've got a degree. I've sort of trying to break the mold for the stereotypical council estate sort of boxer, because I believe that we're out there to sort of change the game and finish in a more positive position than we ended.
And your pro debut will be at what weight?
Good question. I would say...
Obviously, it's at 71 for the
so
Olympics.
Obviously that's in the middle of super welter at 69.9, I believe, or middle, which is 72.6. But what I would say is, obviously, the last 9-10 years I've been competing at 75. So it's like making 71 wasn't probably the healthiest thing to do, not back-to-back in amateur terms. So I know it's only another 1.1, but is it worth, draining my body that much? Will I be able to maintain that for the rest of my career, or should I start at middleweight and be strong there for potentially the rest of my career, or potentially move up to super middle in the later stages? But, if you used to say to me right now, I'd probably say middleweight. But with the scope potentially, seeing my body sort of develops over the next few years of dropping down to super welter for titles. But I believe a big tall strong middleweight would be where I start.
Do you know what? Any of them weight categories, when you look at them and then you sort of see who's there potentially domestically, then you go up and see who's there European in the world. There's no easy category. No. There hasn't been for a while.
No, but it's never been the case in amateurs. We go to tournaments, we don't get to decide who we fight at these amateur tournaments, and middleweight's always been the most stacked division. So it's nothing new to me, and I don't really fear anybody, and it's all about making sure the team make the right decisions, with my input also. But I don't fear nobody, and I think at the right, when the time's right, I can take on anyone, and I can beat anyone. So it's exciting.
All right, last question. I know you're not going to answer it, but you might give us some indication. Are we to assume that when you turn pro, it's going to be either with Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, or Sky and Ben Shalom?
Well, listen, it's assumptions, assumptions will be made, but let's just wait, it's exciting, the suspense, and let's just wait. It won't be too long to wait. Do you know what I'd like, Coog? I'd like my announcement to be made before the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I'd like people to know, I'd like, for everything to be set in stone, because heading out, 2024, I'd like to have a set date for 25. But listen, people can assume what they want to assume, but, sooner rather than later, facts will come out.
You want to add politician to your list of trades, because you answered the right one. Right? Yeah, you answered the question without answering it, but we're used to hearing that anyway. Lewis, listen, thank you very much for your time. We look forward to a very exciting next chapter for you in your career. Congratulations on a successful Olympics. Like I said, the only Team GB member to come back with a medal. And where do you keep the medal? That's what I was going to ask you. Where's that?
Because I've been in a lot of sort of appearances, and I've been.
You've got to take it with you everywhere.
I've still been carrying it around with me. I've still been sleeping with it around my neck at night.
I would.
No, but we've actually got a nice case. So when there's a few days where I'm not doing much, I usually leave it in there. But again, I don't want to tell people too much where I leave it, because
absolutely not.
Let's cut that bit out.
It's in a field somewhere in Colchester. It's in a field. It's buried in a field.
Yeah.
Lewis, thank you very much, and we'll no doubt we'll catch up with you kind of nearer the time when you've got more news for us.
Yeah, top man. Thank you.
This has been Kugan Cassius for Raw Podcast. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe, and you will hear and see us next week. Thank you very much.